Everybody's here. If we could, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is the City of Canton Council meeting, January the 7th, 2016, the very first meeting of the new year. This is a special meeting for this council and especially for a number of newly elected and new council members. We're honored today to have someone here who will handle the actual swearing in of the council members and the mayor for their new terms. After each one has been sworn in, they are welcome to say a few words to anyone or anything they would like to say. So let's get started tonight, and then we will have a full agenda after all the swearing in. The person that will be doing the swearing in is no stranger to most people here. Although I'm sure there may be some of our citizens who may not know Judge Pope. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background about him, which is by no means in its entirety, or doesn't really do him justice for all of the organizations and honors that he has received throughout his lifetime. Judge Marion Pope Jr. was born in Thompson, Upson County, Georgia. Shortly after his birth, his family moved to Canton in Cherokee County. After graduation from Canton High School in 1945, Judge Pope entered North Georgia College in Dahlonega. His education was interrupted by a call to serve in World War II, and Judge Pope served in the Navy for 2 years. After the war, Judge Pope attended South Georgia College in Douglas. Later, he entered the University of Georgia, earning a Bachelor of Business Administration degree, and in 1953 earned his Bachelor of Laws degree. In 1988, he capped his academic career by earning a Master of Laws from the University of Virginia. After admission to the bar in 1953, Judge Pope began the practice of law in Canton. Elected to the Georgia House of Representatives, Judge Pope served from 1963 to 1966. On March 24, 1967, he was appointed Superior Court Judge in the Blue Ridge Judicial Circuit, an office he held until his appointment to the Court of Appeals of Georgia by Governor George D. Busbee on January 5, 1981. He was reelected by the people of Georgia for 6 successive terms. Judge Pope served as Chief Judge from 1993 to December 94. Judge Pope is a former trustee of the Institute of Continuing Judicial Education in Georgia and a member of the Chief Justice's Commission on Professionalism. Judge Pope was also appointed as a member of the Appellate Court's Study Commission by then Lieutenant Governor Pierre Howard. In 1997, Judge Pope was presented the Tradition of Excellence Award by the General Practice and Trial Section of the State Bar of Georgia. In January of 2000, he was the recipient of the Cherokee County Chamber of Commerce's first Citizen Award. He was selected as one of the 100 most influential Georgians by Georgia Trend magazine in 2002. He's married to the former Judith Anita Few, and they have 3 children, Tom, John, and Jennifer. Judge Pope is a favorite son of Cherokee County and obviously well respected by all who know him. It is an honor to have with us tonight one of Canton's own to administer the oath of office for those beginning new terms. Judge Pope. Okay. Joellen, we will have you sworn in first. We need to come, if you would, come over here so that when we get this recorded, we can hopefully hear all the sound properly.
I don't know hardly how to act in the First Baptist Church, really. I always was up there in the balcony, you know. Anyway, it's good to be here. It's good to see this many people turn out. In ancient times, slaves were branded, generally in the palm of the right hand. In order for the magistrate to give an oath later on, he would ask them to hold up their right hand. Why? To see if they were entitled to swear or affirm an oath. Well, we've come a long way from that, but we still ask you to hold up your right hand and take a swear, or either affirm the oath of your office. It's good to me to administer the oath to Joellen Wilson. She and I both were trustees at Reinhardt University, which is some of my favorite time spent with a great university. And she was really the head knocker besides Isherwood. You know, Isherwood just had a title, but she did all the work. So this is not your first time to serve as a city councilwoman. Did you ever serve as mayor? Never served as mayor. That's why we're in such good shape, I guess. I'm kidding. She's one of my favorite people, and her husband, John. I've got two boys, Jimmy and Johnny. They grew up with Tom and John. I'm just so happy we kept them all out of the chain gang. So if you'll hold up your right hand, repeat after me. I do solemnly swear.
I do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully perform.
That I will faithfully perform.
The duties of council member of the city of Canton.
The duties of council member of the city of Canton.
And I will support and defend.
And I will support and defend.
The charter thereof.
The charter thereof.
As well as the Constitution and laws.
As well as the Constitution and laws.
Of the state of Georgia.
Of the state of Georgia.
And of the United States of America.
And of the United States of America.
Thank you very much. You are now sworn in, officially sworn in.
I'm going to say a few words.
We're going to say a few scattering remarks.
Excuse me, I've got some notes.
Oh, you got notes? You can't add lib.
As retirement approached during June 2015, I thought of what I might do to stay involved and what interested me. Almost immediately, I recalled my time serving the citizens of Canton as a former city council member. I decided to qualify for post 1, and to my delight and surprise, I had no opposition. My husband and I moved to Canton in 1968, so this has been our home for 48 years. We love living here in a safe and beautiful community. My hope is that by serving as a representative for Canton residents, I can do my part to ensure that this city remains a truly great place to live and work, to raise our children, to play. Specifically, I look forward to working with City Manager Billy Peppers and the other leaders to make sure all operations are fully staffed, to review upcoming new development plans, and try to make decisions that benefit both residents and business owners, and evaluate infrastructure to keep up with incoming development. It is necessary that we continue to upgrade efforts for light industrial expansion. I hope to work positively with Economic Director Matthew Thomas in this growth. As always, I look forward to working with Financial Officer Nathan Ingram as he and the council give consideration regarding how to run the city efficiently while keeping taxes low. During the 2-day orientation held in December, you may have seen some of the pictures of me up in the top of the fire truck basket 100 feet above the city, which was a really interesting situation for me. But I was impressed by the effectiveness of each division in the city. The city retreat planned for February will be an excellent tool to evaluate what is already ongoing for the city and what we have to review for the future. I look forward to this time of learning with the mayor, department leaders, and other council members. I'm thankful for everyone who encouraged me to run for office again, and I plan to seek advice and wisdom from Mayor Hobgood, fellow council members, as well as former Post 1 member Hookie Huffman. and former council members of the city. Thank you.
Well, I thought Mr. Huffman was going to stay up until you finished there, and we would have a smooth transition of power here. So, but Mr. Huffman is over here, and I've asked him to stay for a few minutes after all the swearing in, and then we have a special presentation at that point. So, okay, the next victim will be
Paris Young. Paris, would you come forward, please? I was cross-examined.
Ferris Yawn.
I was cross-examining a witness when I was a lawyer here in Canton, the old marble courthouse, and questioned his identity. He had swore that so-and-so was the culprit. And I was questioning how good he could see. He had glasses on. I said, how far can you see at night and it's dark? He said, I can see the moon. How far is that? I didn't make that up. Well, are you entitled to take an oath, John?
I believe I am.
Okay. Hold up your right hand. Repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully perform the duties
that I will faithfully perform the duties
of council member of the city of Canton,
of council member of the city of Canton,
and I will support and defend
and I will support and defend
the charter thereof,
the charter thereof,
as well as the Constitution and laws of the state of Georgia
as well as the Constitution and laws of the state of Georgia
and the United States of America.
and of the United States of America.
Congratulations, sir.
I just wanted to thank everyone again that supported me through this last campaign, and I look forward to what the next few years brings. I think it's a very exciting time in the life of this city. There are a lot of things happening that make me very excited about the direction this city is going in, and I just look forward to having your support. I'm open to hearing any ideas that you have. Anytime you want something, call me. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Goodwin.
Jack Goodman. I was trying a case one time of chicken catchers. Anybody remember when we were catching chicken? And he had where they picked up chickens. He'd go in the chicken house and grab their legs, put them in a coop. He had scratches all over him. I said, what? I said, what's the matter with you? I've sentenced somebody to 40 years, and I'll just repeat what he said now. He said, God damn. He was sitting in the balcony. I said, go get him. He come down. He had eyes like Mickey Mouse. I said, what seems to be your problem? He said, I've never been to court a day in my life. They let me off. I've been up all night catching chickens. All I can see is chicken legs. I said, what are you taking? He said, amphetamines. Foreman gives them to us, but takes it out of her pay. He said, all I can see is chicken legs. I said, let him go in the back till he lands. Now, I was in school with this guy's brother, Uncle, H.C. I never did know what the H stood for, the C. Really? Holcomb, okay. You entitled to take an oath for us, you know? Yeah, okay. Hold up your right hand. Repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully perform the duties of council member of the city of Canton. And I will support and defend the charter thereof. As well as the Constitution and laws of the state of Georgia. And the United States of America. So help me God. Congratulations. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. I wish we had this kind of turnout on a regular basis. It's quite an honor to see this place filled up. We've done a lot of work in the last 8 years I've been here, and I'm certainly looking forward to the next 4. Canton is getting very busy. I see a lot of new industry coming in, new hospitals, new jobs. Our businesses seem to be starting to thrive. Marketplace, Riverstone seem to be doing well. Our city of Canton businesses seem to be doing better. We fought some tough battles in the beginning, and we've succeeded. I don't know if all of you know this, but Canton was voted #1 city in Georgia this last year. That's quite an honor. And I'm honored to serve all of you. So if any time you need me for anything or anything in the city, just because I live on this side doesn't mean I don't serve you. I serve everybody in the city of Canton. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. Good. Oh, we hiding for you? Got a Bible here. Oh, I see. What's your granddaughter's name? Penelope is going to hold the Holy Bible for her grandpa. Did you call your grandpa?
No, calls me Mustache.
Mustache. Oh, well, that's going to be in the paper, right? Yeah. Okay. Repeat after me, Mr. Hopgood. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully perform
that I will faithfully perform
the duties of mayor
the duties of mayor
of the city of Canton,
of the city of Canton,
and that I will support and defend
and I will support and defend
the charter thereof,
the charter thereof,
as well as the Constitution and laws
as well as the Constitution and laws
of the state of Georgia
of the state of Georgia
and the United States of America.
and the United States of America.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
I too am glad to see all of you here tonight, and thank you for coming out. And let me say how much I appreciate the support that you have given this city and me personally over the last 8 years. It's been incredible. I've been extremely honored to serve as your mayor the last 8 years. Also, it's my political life, I guess, has been somewhat unique in that I have been able to serve both as the chief executive officer of the county as well as the chief executive officer of this city, which is the county seat of our county. And I can say that I've been extremely honored to serve in both capacities, and I believe I have brought some experience from all of it and kind of evolved along the way, and hopefully I know our council has evolved, and it is getting better and better, and we are certainly appreciative of the public support that we've had during some very rough times at times. But, you know, we came in, we had some problems at the city. We have slowly addressed those problems, of which debt was one, and other issues. But we made a lot of progress, and I'm really excited about the future of the next 4 years. I think it's going to be the year of the term of getting things done. We've had to go through a lot of processes in order to line up where we are now, to bring all the stars in alignment. But I think they're there now. So you're going to see some projects that are completed and some effort taken that perhaps you haven't seen quite in the past to get there. But I think we're going to get a lot of things done. And I, once again, am honored to serve as mayor for the next 4 years. And I ask for your support and your help, your understanding as we go about doing that job. Thank you so much for being here. We now have a special presentation. Let me thank Judge Pope once again for being here and for helping with these ceremonies. It's such an honor to have someone of his stature in our midst. I've got to tell you, I know he's, very shy about that. Of course, he's always very shy, but he is really an important part of our community and has been for a long time, and has done lots of things, and he's helped our community and our city and our county and our state prosper in the last, during his lifetime, and we really appreciate that. Thank you, Judge. Thank you very much. Where'd Mr. Huffman? Oh, there you are. You got off with. If you would, come on up, at least down front here, and we would like to present to you a little gift. We know you're getting older, and you want to spend more time on the front porch. So we wanted you to have this Brumby rocker. It is, as you will note, which they may not be able to see from the audience, but it is engraved with a city symbol and your name and term, and it really is beautiful.
I have something to say.
We knew you were going to talk.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council, and thanks for all the citizens and folks, family, friends that are here tonight. Such a great event. It's been a wonderful 4 years for me. I've learned a lot. I've met a lot of people. It's just been a wonderful experience to me. It's a chapter in my life I'll never forget. Never. I'll never forget, y'all. We have a great city. Our police department has grown, as we'll see again tonight, and they're such true professionals and just do such an outstanding job under our chief and assistant chief over there. We're just so lucky. And our fire department, where Chief Floyd, I think they're already out on the call tonight. But our fire department has done such a great job. Our streets department, they do well. Our water department. Folks, we have such a wonderful city. As it was said just a few minutes ago, it's voted the number one city in the state, and you should be very proud of that. And I am so proud and honored to have served. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We can get somebody to help you with that, okay, if you like. Be happy to. Let me just say, and I'll repeat just a little bit of what we said at the last meeting, was that Hookie has meant a lot to this council and to this city, and he has brought some issues before this city that needed to be brought. And he has been very, very persistent on those issues. And I'm grateful to him for that, and I wish you well in your retirement, and I hope you have a great new year and years to come. So thank you for being with us for those past 4 years. We appreciate it. Well, you're a debt of gratitude. Thank you. Okay. All right, moving along. We will now, if you will, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. Mr. Rust?
Dear Lord, we begin the new year with a newly elected City Council. We ask you to help us continue the harmonious progress that this council has made toward a better city of Canton. Please help us see the city's opportunities through the rose-colored glasses of our own making. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Our public service announcements. Ms. McGrew, do you have any today? Okay.
I do. Thank you for asking. As you know, the LCI plan is being updated. The city is having a workshop next Thursday, 6:30 to 8:30, to which all citizens of Canton are invited. Your input is valuable as we plan the future of our city. We're planning the area from Etowah to the downtown loop. So this will be at City Hall, 6:30 to 8:30 upstairs. Everyone from Canton is invited to attend and strongly encouraged to attend. Also, this Saturday, 9 to 11, is one of the wonderful opportunities that we'll have to have informal conversations with our police department at Cup Up. And Cup Up is a wonderful little independent coffee shop that resides inside the building of Audio Intersection on Main Street. It's between Mancini's and the Snug. So I know the policemen love doing this, the citizens love it, so please come and get to know our police officers. They're wonderful. Saturday, 9 to 11, Cup Up. Third, and this one's pretty close to my heart, I'm an avid reader and I know many of you are too. This Saturday at 1 p.m., our very own library, R.T. Jones Library, is having a wonderful author. Her name is Amanda Kyle Williams, and she writes mysteries. She's going to be at the library, and we're pretty doggone lucky to have her come to Canton. I'm very excited about that, and I hope you'll come to the library at 1 o'clock on Saturday after you have coffee with our police officers.
Thank you, Ms. McGrew. Does anyone else have any particular announcements? Okay. Certainly want to welcome all of our guests and visitors tonight. We really appreciate it. We have some very, very special guests. So we have the Scoutmaster of the Boy Scout Troop 316. That is an actual new troop chartered out of the Church of the Messiah in Canton. And these young men are needing the requirement to attend a council meeting, and they take notes and they report back to their merit badge counselors for citizenship in the community and communications. And these are young men that I think this is required for an Eagle Scout. Is that correct? Well, I'd like to welcome each one of you here and say thank you for being here. This is a special meeting, even more unusual than we usually have. But welcome, and anytime you're welcome back to the City Council. But I kind of doubt once you get your merit badge, you probably won't want to come back. But anyway, welcome, and we're glad to have you here. So thank you very much. All right. We have someone here from the Rivers Alive. Is it Diane? Is she? Who's here from? Oh, okay, you are. Okay, yeah. Well, I'm gonna read a portion of this. I've already read this at the last meeting, not knowing no one was going to be here at that meeting, but we have a proclamation for a group here that has done an awful lot of work in cleaning up Canton Creek, and have gotten all kind of stuff out of it, and really making it a better stream and a much cleaner stream, which flows directly into the Etowah River. But I'm going to read this, and then I would ask her to come down, and we will then present this to her. The City of Canton Mayor and Council wish to recognize the Rivers Alive Canton Creek Monitoring Group for their cleanup efforts of the Canton Creek on Friday, November the 13th, 2015. And whereas this is the fourth year that the Rivers Alive Canton Creek Monitoring Group conducted the stream cleanup, and the City of Canton appreciates all of their efforts to improve water quality. And whereas spanning 4 consecutive years and the collection of more than 160 total bags of trash recyclables, the inspiring partnership between the City of Canton and the Georgia Adopt a Stream / Rivers Alive Student Volunteer Canton Creek Monitors Group provides an inspirational governmental community citizenship model. Each year, together we strive to alleviate some of the intense pollution pressure at the spot where Canton Creek crosses under Marietta Street Bridge and attempt to intervene before it can pollute our waterways. And whereas this past November, human impact on Canton Creek diminished substantially with the help of 13 volunteers. Highlights of collected rubbish include 1,474 glass beverage bottles, 386 plastic bags, 181 lottery tickets, 181 beverage cans, 151 plastic beverage bottles, 89 food wrappers, 75 metal bottle caps, 51 cigarette butts, I'm surprised not more of those, but 41 plastic bottle caps, and so much more, from metal tools to cleaning supplies to car parts. Therefore, the City of Canton Mayor and Council wish to express appreciation to the Rivers Alive Canton Creek Monitoring Group for their cleanup efforts of Canton Creek on Friday, November 13th, 2015, and encourage them to continue their commitment and dedication to this community. Oh, yes, absolutely. We want all the volunteers and all this here. Come on over this way, if you will. Y'all can get, if you want to get a picture wherever you are. Okay, let me kind of get, we'll get right over here away from behind that. I'll get in the middle here, okay? Come on, just a little bit here. We need to go further, or is this okay? Real low. Scooch on up here a little bit. How's that work? Okay. This is a proclamation we want to present to you. Okay, is everybody smiling? Got it? Everybody got what they want? Okay. Congratulations. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Angelica Krubeck, and I will be talking to you briefly about plastic pollution and the ways you can prevent it from happening. How many here think plastic pollution is a problem? Okay. How many here think that plastic pollution is a big problem? Yes, it's a big problem. Today, that is exactly what I'm going to be talking to you about. A while back, I was invited to a presentation at the library. A young girl named Hannah Testa was talking about plastic pollution and the devastating effects it's having on the environment. She told us that there are plastic islands bigger than twice the size of Texas. And they are gathering up in certain areas of the ocean. These areas are called gyres. There are 5 major gyres. Gyres are where the ocean has rotating currents, and because of this strong force, the plastic that is dumped into the ocean gathers up here. Hannah showed us a documentary by Angela Sun called Plastic Paradise. This film showed that animals were accidentally eating the plastic trash in the ocean because they thought it was food and later died. Sea creatures easily mistake plastic for food. If a plastic bag is floating in the ocean, it looks so much like a jellyfish to a turtle. And jellyfish are a turtle's favorite food. Plastic gets caught on fins and stuck around necks. Does anyone want to guess how many plastic bags are used per person in the United States per year? Oh, yes? The answer, 500 bags per person. So if a family of 4 takes a pledge today to stop using plastic bags, just one family, they will help remove 2,000 plastic bags from our streams, landfills, and oceans in 1 year. Here's a recent fact. On July 1st, 2015, Hawaii became the first state in the country to enforce a plastic bag ban, hoping to get rid of plastic bags. I hope all states try to do this. My mom recently showed me a video of a young student that invented a system to catch plastic in the oceans. His name is Boyan Slat. His team will use his invention to start the ocean cleanup this year to collect plastic that is gathered up throughout our oceans. It will be the largest cleanup in history. In his message, he says, we need a combination of prevention and cleanup. So what can you do to help? I'll give you 4 ideas. Number 1, reduce. Make less trash. Number 2, reuse. Make something creative out of your trash. Number 3, recycle. Use the recycling center. Number 4, prevention. Don't use materials that hurt the environment and are not biodegradable. Here are 4 examples of ways I'm trying to help with the prevention part. My mom and I researched and found an organization online called Morse Bags. The company Morse Bags was created by a lady named Paul who lives in the United Kingdom. She used to live on a houseboat in London and was distressed about the number of plastic bags floating by and wondered where they all ended up. She did some research and was horrified to find out about plastic and the dangers it poses to marine wildlife. So she decided then and there never to use a plastic bag again. She started sewing cloth bags and always gives them out for free. Recently, a group of volunteers and I worked on making these Morse bags. It was a lot of fun, and we created bags to pass out for free. Here are some examples of Morse bags. I encourage you to organize a similar event to help people use cloth bags instead of plastic bags. Then I did my own testing on the biodegradability of petroleum plastic versus homemade casein plastic. I made my own casein plastic that could be used in place of petroleum plastic. I believe if I can make a biodegradable plastic, then all big companies can do the same. Did you know you can buy biodegradable potato starch or cornstarch, spoons, and eco-friendly stainless steel straws? Through a company named Simply Straws, you can even buy glass straws. On their website, they tell us more than 500 million disposable plastic straws are used in the U.S. every day and would fill more than 127 school buses daily. I participated in a park cleanup. We collected bags of trash and recorded each item we threw into the trash bags. Most of the trash was candy wrappers and plastic water bottles. More than 90% of what we picked up was plastic-based. Since I was the smallest one there, Miss Lori asked me to crawl under the pine trees to get a Sprite plastic bottle. It was creepy and fun. I also do monthly creek monitoring with a group in Canton. Under the direction of Miss Lori and my dear friend and mentor, Madison Higby, I was able to learn about how monthly testing of our waterways can lead to change. Because of our results, Cherokee County has actively monitored and stopped surrounding businesses from polluting the Etowah River. Okay, one last thing to remember. There's a verse that says, don't let anyone look down on you because you're young, but set an example. We may be kids, but I believe that we can make a big difference. Thank you.
What a great job. Thank you for doing that. Really good job. Wow. Okay. let's move along with the meeting here. We have Mr. Peppers. You're going to introduce our stormwater manager.
I am. For those of you who were in town during the holidays, you saw quite a bit of rain that came in, and it reminds us how important stormwater is for a function of the city. We have to have somewhere for all of this water when it hits the ground to go. And so I'd like to introduce our new stormwater manager, Mr. Scott Hooper, who's in the back of the room. He started with us the middle of December. He has already hit the ground running, working with property owners, looking at catch basins within the city, working on some of our MS4 reporting, and we're trying to get everything lined up so that we can tackle those stormwater issues that exist here in the city. So if you have any problems with stormwater runoff, you can contact Mr. Hooper. But I did want to introduce him to the council and let you know that this is a matter that we're trying to address. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott, welcome to Canton. Glad to have you. Okay, Chief Mitchell, you have some new employees?
Mayor, Council, City Manager, thank you for this time. If I can have our employees, our officers, and our employees stand up and come forward, please. As you can see, we've been pretty busy in the hiring process. Going back to last year, we really, at the police department, as a team, set our focus and our mindset on a balance of enforcement and community. And our officers and our employees have been working hard to attain the goal of building trust and relationships and to join our citizens as in a partnership as we protect our community, especially this time in our nation's history. With that said, part of that was we need to hire officers and employees at the police department that have that mindset of community and an attitude of service. It takes an organizational and a cultural change in an organization to do that and to really focus on what we need to do in our connection and engagement with the community, and we have done that. So we think it's extremely important that our community sees the faces of our new officers and our new employees that are charged to serve this community. First, we have Officer Brandon Merritt. He was sworn in today. Officer Merritt comes to us with many years of experience in law enforcement, both from Florida and also, excuse me, served over a decade at the Pickens County Sheriff's Office, and we were lucky to have him join our ranks at the police department. We have Officer Brent Van Hoos, who was just recently hired, just actually recently graduated the police academy. Officer Van Hoos comes to us from service in the United States Army. You can see McClure. We have Officer Tyler McClure. He also just recently graduated the academy and also served years, had years of service in the United States Army. We have Officer Danny Mendoza. He came to us and graduated from the Rome Academy, and we're very fortunate to be able to hire him. He has years of service previous in the United States Marine Corps and the United States National Guard. We have Officer Jimmy Butler, who has over 8 years of service prior in law enforcement, just recently graduated the academy. His law enforcement service was in Florida, and he is now in the field training program. And last but not least there, we have Miss Kim Bartrow. She comes to us with previous years of service at the Pickens County Sheriff's Office, over 2 years of service there in records and GCIC management and as a TAC. And she is in our records division, and we're grateful to have her with her years of experience to be able to push our records division to better heights. So again, welcome to our new officers, and we wanted you to get to see their face as they go out in our community and serve you. Thank you.
Let me congratulate those members of the new team now. So, new members of the team, I can't really say enough good things about the job that our chief is doing and the team that he has put together and the attitudes that they have toward policing in the community. It's just been phenomenal at how what a job they're doing. We really appreciate it. On behalf of the council, let me say that thank you very much for what you're doing and the way you are doing it. I think what really important. Thank you. Okay, now we will entertain a motion to approve the agenda. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, are there any changes or anything? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Okay. You also have in your agenda package the minutes from the December 17th meeting. Are there any changes or corrections to be made to those? Have a motion to approve and a second. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Thank you. All right. In your agenda package, you have the financial statements for November 2015, which is the second month of this fiscal year. This is for informational purposes only. Are there any questions or comments regarding that? Okay. 10-minute public input. We just have one. Stephanie Joyner.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. And yes, I am Stephanie Joyner and the Director of the Cherokee County Historical Society. I also want to thank Council again for establishing the Historic Preservation Commission and to the city staff for all the time they have put into training the commission to make sure that they have the tools that they need to make informed decisions. But in light of what happened recently with the Water Authority building, and I think that caught us all by surprise for a variety of reasons, I am here today to ask you to consider a moratorium on the demolition of historic buildings until the Historic Preservation Commission is fully operational. So more specifically, I would ask for a 120-day citywide moratorium on the demolition of any building 50 years or older as of January 1st. And I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. I think we have had some brief discussion regarding this. Now, we would need to know the limits of that moratorium. Did we understand it would be 90 days perhaps that we could do maybe?
That's what we had discussed, but Mr. Patton indicated that he thought that the work will be finished in 120 days.
Okay.
So I think we're okay if we have that as a target.
With 120? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Knowing that that's the target date.
Okay, as a target date, okay. So that's something the council needs to consider between now and the next council meeting, 2 weeks from now. Is if that's something we want to do, put a moratorium perhaps on buildings that are 50 years old or older. There would always be, in my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there would always be an appeal if someone felt like they needed to tear a building down and it was justified, that they could come before this council, and we would do our best to expedite that hearing and plead their case before the council, and we could allow it or not during that moratorium. So, any, let's see, Ms. McGrew?
Yes, if we enact this moratorium of 120 days at our voting session, are there any permits pulled for the next 2 weeks? Do we need to act sooner?
Yeah, if you wait for 2 weeks, somebody that came and applied would be able to get a permit. So you could vote tonight. I think if you wanted to amend the agenda to add it as an item, you could do it tonight.
Okay. Do we want to amend the agenda?
I think we do.
Mr. Russ?
I just had one question. If we had this moratorium in place, would we have been able to stop? Would that moratorium have stopped the county from tearing down that building?
No, because it's actually a authority created by local legislation. The ordinance specifically exempts state instrumentalities.
We can't stop a county from doing.
No.
In a state building, the same thing. I mean, we can't do that either. So if it's a city building on city property or in the city, we can probably do that, right? If it's not county or state.
Well, yeah, you can always prohibit yourself from doing something. But,
Yeah.
but the ordinance specifically exempts governmental properties.
Can we require similar to a zoning notice when a property has to be posted? If the home is 50 years old or older and is going to be torn down, that property would have to be posted, say, for 30 or 45 days prior to the demolition. Would that be something we could do? So that, I mean, the idea here is that, you know, the public needs to be aware of what's going on. And just like this last event here, I think the bottom line was nobody knew what was going on, actually, until it was too late. Even though they did act on that in a public, open meeting. Of course, as I understand it, there's no media coverage of the Water Authority, unfortunately, and so the public doesn't get that information that way. And by the time it gets to the city for a permit, if we're obligated to issue one, it's a little bit late at that point for the public to know that this is going to happen. Now, this may not totally prevent them from tearing down buildings, certainly, that's 50 years old or older, but at least it brings it to the attention of the public that they may show cause why or why not it should be done. Ms. McGrew?
At this time, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda with the purpose of enacting a 120-day moratorium on any demolition of historic buildings.
We have a second? Second. Okay. Can we do that, Mr. Bobby, can we do that as
Mr.
one
Patton,
sweep?
Did you think we needed to advertise to do that, or were you just asking? I'm not sure about that, but I mean, I hadn't thought about it before the meeting, obviously, so I'm not prepared to address that. But if you want to go forward, and we can do it again in 2 weeks.
I think we go ahead and go forward, and if something happens, at least, you know.
If there's some other requirements we got to do, we'll do them. But
Okay, we can do this in the one motion that you made to include this, or we need two separate ones.
Well, first you got to
amend the agenda.
Technically, you got to amend the agenda, then have a motion for the
motion
agenda.
Motion to amend the agenda.
All right, we have a motion. I have a second. I have a motion and second to amend the agenda to include a topic of a moratorium for 120 days on the demolition of buildings that are 50 years old or older. Is there any other discussion? Oh, I'm sorry, Jack. Let's see.
I thought we would need to have public input on this. I mean, we don't normally vote on something that's just brought up unless we
that's
make
true.
the public aware of this.
The motion right now is just to put it on the agenda for discussion,
Yes,
not to vote on it.
The motion is to put it on the agenda
So
at
let's put it on
this
the
point.
let's put it on the agenda, then you can bring that up, Jack. I agree.
All right.
So we got a motion and a second. So go ahead.
Any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. All right. Now, is there a motion?
If I could just make a comment, this is an emergency action that you're taking, so that you
Yes.
can have some discussion of any potential projects that might come forward. So I don't necessarily think you have to have the public input to take the emergency action, because you're giving the public the opportunity, if they have an individual case, to come before the council.
Right. They have an appeals process here.
And with the Historic Preservation Commission, when they do create a district, any property that's contributing in that district would come before them. So really all we're doing is we're saying, since there's not a district in place at this time, we want to preserve that right of the city as it relates to any demolition. But since the Historic Preservation Commission won't be able to hear that case, it would have to come before the council during that 120-day period.
Okay. All right. Do we have a motion?
I do have a motion. I would like to motion to place a moratorium on issuing permits for demolition or altering historical structures 50 years or older for 120 days in order to adopt a preservation district.
Do I have a second? Second. Okay. Any other discussion? Mr. Goodman.
Yeah. Let me see if I understand this. You're saying is there going to be a committee that's going to be formed? And
Well, the committee's already
been
formed. That's a historic preservation commission.
But they're going to decide whether someone can destroy their own building or not. Is that the
Well, yeah,
long and
right.
short of it?
That's part of their duties. Yeah, and that's already been approved.
I think that's infringing on their personal right. I mean,
well, we did it several months ago.
5 people, I know, but 5 people. Well, we didn't push that forward though. We're pushing it forward tonight. We didn't even announce it. I just don't think that's.
No, all we're doing tonight. Oh, you mean the moratorium?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What we are doing, and I think I think what we saw in the last few days was what sort of precipitated this.
But that wouldn't have stopped it. It's a water authority building. They could have stopped it. And really, just to tell you the truth, my opinion of it is, I think it looks much better that they did destroy it. Our entrance to the city there has been beautified by that old building being knocked down.
Well, it could be, and I don't think it's necessarily a question of that building, particularly as it is the potential for other buildings that might be. But we have this commission in place. The commission is in place. The only thing we lack is the commission having the time to meet and draw out a district that this is effective in. In other words, they're not going to try to make it fully citywide. It's to be a certain district.
Yeah, but the historic district. So, but to put this in the place of 5 or 6 people, to make that decision where if someone had owned that property, if they wanted to knock it down and put a nice big home there, and someone said they can't do it, it doesn't make sense.
Well, that's part of historic preservation.
Well, it is, but it's you're letting them run someone else's life. I just don't agree with that. I would vote no.
Well, we already voted yes on that. Now we
voted that you agreed. You
just
voted
to put it
that,
on the agenda.
The agenda. But that's
no, we haven't voted.
We haven't voted though.
No. What he's saying is that's already the case with the Historic Preservation Commission.
Oh.
That's already in, and it will be there. We've already voted for that and approved it. The only thing we're doing now, or is proposed here now, is that we basically step that up into effect, and as the city manager indicated, let the appeal be back to the city council instead of going before the Historic Preservation Commission, because they're not quite ready for that at this point.
And the way it's set up right now, I mean, council approved the Historic Preservation Ordinance before I got here, and that allows for the creation of a Historic Preservation Commission, which was seated back this fall. We have taken them over the last few months and gone through the education process as to what a historic preservation can do based on state law and based on their own ordinance. They just haven't drawn up the exact district. And in that process, there's still an appeals process. If the Historic Preservation Commission says, we don't think you should tear down this building, there's still an appeal that allows a property owner to state their case. In most instances, what it's related to is actually the design elements. If somebody wants to build something in that area, what it might look like, if somebody wants to do major alterations. But that part was already approved by council when they created that historic preservation ordinance. All we're asking for now through this motion is that we protect that area until this district is fully vetted out, so that we're not having a rush of people trying to get work done before that district can be drawn.
Mr. Rust?
I have three things I'd like to talk about. First of all, if someone walks in for a permit to demolish a building and he says, well, it's built 45 years ago, who in the city administration is going to determine age?
We would rely back onto the property tax card. Most of those cards include an estimated year of building, you know, as close as we can get it. The reason why 50 is kind of the magic number is that is the number that's identified by the Secretary of the Interior as it relates to tax credits. And those are typically the contributing buildings for a historic district. So by saying 50 years as of January 1, any building that was built before 1966 would trigger us to say, hey, you can't do that demolition, or you got to go before City Council during this 120-day period.
That may answer my second part of the question. Was she wanted it retroactive, Ms. Joyner wanted it to retroactive to January 1, but she wants the determination of age to be retroactive to January 1, 2016.
Well, the reason why you...
So we're not going back and taking away permits?
No, we can't do that. But the reason why you would say January 1, 50 years as of January 1, is those cards are just going to have a year. They're not going to have a day or a month or anything like that. We're looking for 1966 or older.
So we'll be able to determine that pretty easily?
Yes, sir. Should be able
to. The next question may have been answered when we authorized this district or this historical preservation group. But what are the consequences? Let's suppose you get a 120-day moratorium and the guy walks right back in 121 days later and says, boom, I want my permit. What power does the Historical Society have to stop if they've determined this building, for whatever reason, should be preserved?
Well, it wouldn't be the Historical Society that has the power. It would be the Historic Preservation Commission. And really all they're doing is acting on behalf of the city to make sure that those historic resources that contribute to the city and the uniqueness of the city are considered as it relates to design and even demolition or remodeling. So, you know, it's kind of like the Planning Commission. They see it first. They make a determination.
Are we maybe making a mountain out of a molehill here? Because how many properties conceivably are even going to come up?
Not very many. What we're protecting here is that we know we're going to have a district in place in the coming months. We don't want property owners making a rush to get things done to skirt that commission while they get the boundary lines drawn. And this moratorium allows us to preserve that district while they're working on those lines.
This will give us a chance to see how this works. If it doesn't work, we'll look at this again in 120 days.
Right.
Meaning, if something doesn't work very well, we have to figure out.
Well, the goal will be to have the district drawn within that 120-day period. If for some reason they can't get it drawn within the 120-day period, then we would come back and ask council whether or not you wanted to extend the moratorium until it could be done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Young?
I'm thinking that we probably couldn't, with this, from what I understand, we couldn't have stopped this particular building coming down because we didn't have the authority. But I'm thinking if the whole point of the moratorium now is to stop people, to give us a chance to try to find a way to preserve if possible. I have heard enough over the years that I'm not sure this building, even if it had been under our authority, could have been saved. I think it was everybody pretty much agrees it was in pretty bad shape, and coming down was probably the most economically feasible thing to do. But we would want to have the opportunity to stop, take a real close look, so that someone doesn't just, for their convenience sake, destroy a historical monument. And that's all we're really asking for because of the appeals process. Someone can come in and convince us, if they're able, that it is the proper thing to do. So we're not telling people they absolutely cannot. We're just saying stop and take an extra step so that we know that it's the right thing to do for the future of their community. And I think that's all any of us are after, because we understand the realities that just because it's old doesn't mean it can be saved or even should be in some cases. And that's my thoughts on it.
Thank you. Mr. Russ?
I just have one comment. You know, driving in and out of this city for 10, 11 years, that building was in such bad shape, mold-wise. I mean, you drove in and what you saw is a big white mold wall. I went in there one time and asked them, the building was in really bad shape, but I asked them to please power wash it. You know what? They did. I didn't ask them to tear it down. So I think the process we have here is important, and maybe would have given somebody a second look at least if it was a building we could control. But I think we have to be real careful stopping something that really has to happen. So,
Well, I kind of doubt there's been a large number of homes demolished in the city of Canton in the last 6 months. So another 120 days, probably not a lot that's scheduled to be demolished anyway, But, yes, ma'am.
So the Historic Preservation Committee will determine the boundaries for historic preservation.
But they'll create the district,
And
and
it will have boundaries. Because,
Correct.
see, I'm thinking my house is over 50 years old, so
Yeah.
I don't want my house torn down. And I know other people are thinking that, so I want to be sure that everybody understands that the boundaries for historic preservation will be published so that people will know if they fall within those boundaries.
Absolutely, and they won't be citywide, but until they decide exactly what those boundaries are, by putting this in place, it kind of preserves that option for the Historic Preservation Commission to get the best district for the city.
And the names of the people on the Historic Preservation Committee have been published and probably will be published again. And as soon as the district is outlined, we will all know.
Absolutely, and they
And
do
have
public
input.
meetings, and there'll be updates
Okay.
before council to as it relates to that district and all that. There's very public process.
Yeah, we have appointed the Historic Preservation Commission in the past, although we've had one or two members that have stepped off of it, and we may still have a slot or two on there. I've got to look at that again, but we've had that in place, and they've actually been taking some training over the last couple of months, I think, and but they just haven't got it all together in order to do the outlining of the district and all that. So it's pretty much in place right now.
I think a lot of times people would like for their house or their
Sure.
place, their property to be a part of the historic preservation. You apply to the government to get, the federal government to get those kinds of
Sure.
outlines. So it's a good thing. I don't think we need to think in terms of it, people coming in tearing down our houses.
No, it's certainly not that. What it will do is it'll really maintain the integrity of the community there, of that community. It'll maintain that, and what we have is the reason a lot of people move to Canton. And if we can maintain some of those reasons, that's all the better as far as I'm concerned.
And I think also, Mr. Patton brought this to my attention, and I'll bring it to yours as well. We also need to be very cognizant during this moratorium process if there's some act of God that makes a building unsafe, if there's a court order or something like that that makes a building unsafe, we'll have to identify that and deal with it quickly. But again, that gives the council the opportunity to deal with that quickly in special called meeting if we had to.
Right.
If we can think of it in terms of what you've done at a minimum is an emergency moratorium until the next meeting.
Yes.
We can spend the next 2 weeks working out the details and thinking of all the things that everybody's sitting around thinking of right now. And then we can have a written resolution spelling those out. So I think the motion is fine what we've done, but in effect, it's a 2-week emergency moratorium.
Okay. Ms. McGrew, you okay with that?
I'm good with that.
Okay, so, Mr. Rose?
Bobby, doesn't she have to change her motion to make it an emergency 2-week, and then we'll
No,
ratify?
I think it's a 120-day moratorium. As we think in the next 2 weeks of the what-ifs, we may bring a reenactment of it in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the table. Any other discussion at all? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion with the exception of Mr. Goodwin voting no. Okay. Under old business, we have an update on Canton's Northwest Fire Station. Councilmember Grant.
Yes, the Fire Service Committee met on December 15th to receive updates on the Northwest Canton Fire Station progress from Chief Floyd. Chief Prather and Assistant Chief Robinson from Cherokee County were also in attendance. The committee discussed several issues involving the construction of the new station and requested an updated schedule from the architectural firm Wiley Wilson. Yesterday, the city received an updated schedule from Gary Watkins, the lead architect, that details the completion of the station before the end of the year. In addition, Mr. Watkins thinks it may be realistic to shorten the construction bidding schedule to gain even more time, but at this point they are anticipating us getting into the new station before the year's end, which is great news. So that's the basic update.
Okay, thank you. Next item, update on the requirements for permit to use fireworks on public property. Council members Young, Grant, and Goodwin are the committee. Mr. Grant or Mr. Young?
Well, due to the holidays, we have not met. We have scheduled a meeting Tuesday at 3 o'clock here at City Hall,
Okay.
and we will start work on that process then.
So we could probably expect a report at the next council meeting.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Under new business, discussion of Dobson and Associates, Inc. contract renewal. City Manager Peppers.
Yes, we have a contract with Jeff Dobson and Associates before you that basically allows us to utilize the auction services that the other governments in Cherokee County utilize to auction off surplus goods. The contract before you is a 3-year contract. Basically, the way it works, there's at least one auction a year by Mr. Dobson. He has a fee that he assesses on top of the bid price, so there's no cost to the city as it relates to this contract. I will tell you that in sitting down with our CFO and having some discussions with others, we are looking at other ways to surplus certain property as well. Having an auction is a great thing for us to hold on to if we need to use it for that standpoint, but we'll be bringing a new financial policy to the City Council here very soon, and as part of that we'll look at other alternatives for surplusing property, such as utilizing internet government cell sites. We've even had the discussion of maybe once or twice a year having a day here at City Hall where we display anything that we have to surplus and allow our local citizens to basically participate in a silent auction almost, filling out a bid sheet and all of that. So we'll bring those back to you. This contract just allows us to basically stay on the same auction schedule with the rest of the communities in the county if we want to utilize the auctioneer to surplus any of those properties.
Okay, any questions?
Yes, sir.
Rust?
Doesn't this internet site, I think we discussed this, Billy, that is pretty effective for some items,
It really depends. You know, as it relates, GovDeals is what we use, have used in some instances. And, you know, if we're trying to sell a specialized piece of equipment that another municipality needs, then we may get better bids than if we're auctioning on the courthouse steps, so to speak. And what we've talked about internally is there's some things that we surplus as a city that our citizens might want to take advantage of. And so we need to determine those things that fit in the best category for surplusing to get the best bang for our buck in return, but also make sure that we preserve that right for our local citizens if they feel like they can offer a good bid to be able to take those items as well.
But this keeps us in their schedule, and it doesn't really cost us anything.
Correct.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Oh, Mr. Grant.
And just to confirm, it would not obligate us to use a public auction only.
No, this does not obligate us to do everything.
Just renews it in case we reserve the option to do that.
Reserve the option, correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Discussion of reducing the speed limit on East Main Street. Councilmember Grant.
Yes, over the past few years, I've received many complaints from constituents about speeding on East Main Street, especially in the historic residential area. Residents fear for their safety when walking, jogging on the sidewalks, or pushing a stroller down the street and walking their pets. Right now, the speed limit goes from 45 miles per hour to 35 to 30 to 25 from 575 to downtown in a very short distance. I think it's less than a mile and a half. There's also a school zone for Hasty Elementary that requires reduced speeds from 25 miles per hour in the morning and afternoons. And given the fact that there may be a 10 mile per hour, some people would argue, grace speed limit above what is published, this would take it up to 45 mile per hour in some sections. So given the fact that the street includes a major residential section and a school zone, I would like to propose that we consider in the next meeting to vote to lower the speed limit on East Main to a consistent 25 miles per hour from Bruce Hill to downtown to enhance public safety. Once the speed limit is reduced, the next step would be to work with Chief Mitchell and his department to enhance enforcement of the speed limit along East Main Street. I believe the reduced speed limit would not only enhance the public safety of all citizens and their children who reside along East Main Street, it would also have the same effect on all citizens who utilize this route as a major connector from downtown to 575. And last but not least, our children in the buses commuting to and from Hasty Elementary in the mornings and afternoons. If any of you have been on East Main Street at this time, you'll notice that the school buses stopping and letting children out on the sidewalks. So I would appreciate your consideration and support on this issue at the next meeting. Thanks.
Yeah, would this actually go between like CVS pharmacy all the way out to where the interstate begins, the right of way?
It does. I believe the 25 mile per hour starts at, I want to say at Etowah River or in that vicinity, or maybe at CVS, and currently goes through downtown, and then it increases to 30, and then to 35, and then to 45. And the 45 to 35 to 30 is from 575 to Breeze Hill and then to Shamley Lane. I think that's like 5 miles per hour and 10 miles per hour total in a very short distance there. So I think it'd be.
Isn't it 45 miles per hour when you get out close to the interstate going toward
yes,
the interstate?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
45 miles per hour up until I think around Breeze Hill. So.
Okay.
So I just think it'd be more consistent if it's 25 miles per hour the whole stretch and safer for our citizens. And I mean, I myself, I'm a resident off of East Main Street, and it's scary walking down the sidewalks, especially around the curves around Jeanette Street, and all of the cars come flying around. And
now we're only talking about, we're not talking about getting over to what is State Route 20, right?
No.
Okay.
I was just proposing Breeze Hill through downtown where it ends on the other side. So.
Mr. Rust?
Before the bridge.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's okay.
Before the bridge.
No, after the bridge, coming into downtown at Breeze Hill.
Stop at Highway 5. Are you proposing that stops at Highway 5 at CBS and it goes all the way through?
It goes all the way through. Currently 25 miles per hour from there through the downtown going toward 575. So. It'd mainly be in the residential sections of East Main Street.
Mr. Rust?
Bill, what are the speed limits by Hasty? I mean, it reduces, you said, from 45 to what? 25.
Hasty is currently 35 miles per hour, except during school zone hours. It's reduced to 25 miles per hour, which is a flashing light.
That won't conflict then. They'll just be 25 all the time.
Right,
The
right.
flashing lights, what's that going to do then? Nothing?
Nothing.
Just warn people.
I think they would still flash just to alert people that
But it will be
it's
25.
active zone of the buses.
I mean, I just didn't want to make sure that we weren't lowering it below what the.
No, I think it's one of the primary reasons to bring
I
it
like
down to that
I
limit
mean, it's good.
consistently.
Thank you.
Mr. Goodman?
I would agree that it's very dangerous on that street. I've been almost hit 3 or 4 times just walking down through there. But I also followed a car from the library going 55 miles an hour, and he ran 55 the whole time, and even at Doc Pettit, they made that curve, and he was outside the lane.
Right.
We do a good job of enforcing, and then all of a sudden we don't have much enforcement there. We've got to be consistent. That's our problem. I know in school zone we'll have people there, and then all of a sudden we won't have people there. But they're coming off the expressway, and they're used to going fast, and they go faster down through there, and I'm as guilty as anybody else. Once you come off of an expressway, you're typically in a faster mode. But people don't pay much attention to that, and I've had, like you've had many calls of people that are very worried about getting hit there. In fact, Bill Bryan, who was a previous councilman, was driving a school bus and hit.
He did get hit.
He got hit, yeah. Yeah. So it can be dangerous. We need to slow it down, but we also need to make sure we got consistent enforcement out there all the time. I mean, it's just.
If I could interject too, one of the things that, and I've made myself a note to sit down with Chief Mitchell, one of the things we'll have to specifically look at in this situation is the method in which we can enforce that speed. As you dial down speed, there are certain types of devices you can use. There are certain permits that you have to use certain things. So we'll just need to evaluate that, and we'll be happy to provide that information to you before the next meeting.
Certainly.
Ms. McGrew, you have something?
I did. I wanted to discuss the enforcement, and Mr. Goodwin addressed it well. But we can put up 100 signs, and unless it's enforced, the signage isn't going to do us any good. I was wondering if we could consider a higher fine for speeding through that residential area with a sign stating that speeding infractions will be ticketed at a higher rate, higher fine.
When I sit down with the chief, we'll look at fine structures, we'll look at the different ways we can track speed, whether or not we can use radar in certain areas or not, and then how we might enforce it. And we'll bring all that back to you.
Thank you.
Mr. Grant?
Yeah, and it was certainly my proposal that we run everything through Chief Mitchell.
Sure.
And it's my understanding that because of all the curves, they're very, I think another reason to reduce it to 25 miles per hour, that there are very few stretches where you could actually shoot the radar. It's my understanding. It may be incorrect. And then I think to Mr. Goodwin's point of people exiting off of 575, I've too followed cars that are speeding and don't see the signs. They're very close together. But I've also noticed that quite often they're from a different county, so I think it's more important for people outside the community to know that that's a residential area and a school zone, and I think it'd be very helpful to do that. So.
Okay. Mr. Rust?
If we're looking forward to being a pedestrian-friendly city, we don't want to run them down. So I think anything we can do to make this city safer is, the one thing that's unique about Main Street is up there where Bill's talking about, the sidewalk is really close to the street.
It is.
Extremely dangerous. So somebody can go off the road 2 feet and be right in your face walking on the sidewalk. So we got to be real careful. Lower speed limit will help that. Sorry.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you. Next item, discussion of the contract with Wanna Play Baseball, Inc. for the operation of the concession stand at Etowah River Park. Mr. Peppers?
As we have started utilizing our parks for recreation, one of the things that I asked our recreation director to look into was to see if we might solicit bids for companies perhaps to take over concession services in those parks. We do have a wonderful concession stand building at Etowah River Park that currently is not being utilized, and I know that he went through the process. I'll let him talk a little bit about the process and the bid that we received.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. What we did is we did a request for a proposal and received from Wanna Play Baseball a proposal from them that then we went into the contract phase with them, that they proposed a 3-year deal that they would run all the concessions within the city parks. As you look at the contract, you can see it's not only Etowah River Park, but it also includes Harmon as well as bowling, which those are more future related. Right now our main concern is getting Etowah River Park concessions going, since we have so many different athletic activities that are taking place out there.
So now that would be whenever there's any events, or would
any athletic events, practices or games or tournaments, the concessions would be open. Special events that are held at Etowah River Park, they also will have the opportunity to have the concession stand open unless somebody's doing some kind of a fundraiser. Then at that point, if they're using concessions to do a fundraiser, then the concessions company would not be allowed to run their concessions for that event, because it will be a fundraiser for that organization that's doing that.
Oh, this was the only proposal you got back?
Yes, sir.
What is the? You said it was a 3-year. Wanted to be a 3-year contract. What's the out on the part of the city if we decide we didn't like the way it was being done? Can we get out in 30 days' notice, or?
It is written in here
I guess I'm always concerned about a multi-year contract, which the city itself is, in my understanding, not permitted to make, except in certain situations, certain utilities and so forth. But I don't think they've done it in the past, but I don't know.
Yeah, their reasoning was they didn't want to invest money in all the different equipment and concessions that they need to have to run the different stands, and then after 1 year that we would take it back out to bid and get another company. So they wanted some kind of
They want a guarantee for a year?
Yeah, they wanted some kind of confirmation over a multi-year time, which they proposed a 3-year contract.
Yeah, I understand why they wanted that. Honestly, I'm just not sure we can legally permit it. I'm sorry, Jack, go ahead.
Did you contact DigiDean at all?
We have tried, and not just myself, but other people within the city, and Mr. Peppers has as well, and we have not been able to get into contact with them.
I just know for years, of course, I was there for 15 years. I know, and they continue to have 1,000+ kids there. And they've run that concession very well for all those years and taken care of the upkeep and building batting cages and everything else. It would seem very odd to me that they wouldn't want to do that. They might not, but
well, we're trying to reach out to them. Also, they've moved the majority of their operations to Malden.
I'll be glad to reach out to them.
Yes.
Jack, I did speak to one of the Latimers about not before this, but asking their opinion about us leasing this out and so forth. That they didn't seem to have. He didn't have any trouble, and I don't know if others might. But
okay, yeah, well,
he didn't have any problem with that. And I would have thought probably, even though it was after the fact, if they'd have had an interest, he would have said something about it. But he didn't.
Okay.
Wes, anyway. Okay. Any other comments, Ms. McGrew?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Gillum, I have 3 questions. On number 2 in the contract, it says it's the responsibility of the lessee to purchase and maintain all equipment. What equipment will be needed?
What equipment will be needed?
Right.
They'll need to get some. They look like Coke refrigerators. There's already a refrigerator in the existing concession stand, but they'll need some of the ones that. So they'll purchase some more of those to put Coke and Gatorades and that kind of stuff in there. They're also talking about different things from coffee makers, some kind of like cappuccino stuff, hot chocolate, as well as they need racks to put the chips and the candy on and that kind of thing. Grills as well, yes, sir.
Okay, you talked about fundraisers. If there are people in the concession stand running it for a fundraiser, would they be allowed to use the equipment of Want to Play Ball?
Usually when people use that for a fundraiser, they have their own concession, so they'll bring like their own concession trailer or set up their own concession, so they will not have access to the concession stand at the park.
Okay. And I was getting at, shouldn't we purchase the equipment for the concession stand and it be our responsibility to maintain it?
We could, but that's something that this company and then others as well, that's what they kind of do, and it's their job to upkeep. They'll take care of the concession stand, and they're very familiar with all the health codes and violations and everything else, so they'll be the ones to maintain it and keep it clean and everything, so it'll be kind of their equipment.
What if we wanted to use it for a function of ours?
Yeah, that's part of ours because it is a joint venture with the city, so we could be able to use it. So when we do our different concerts or whatever special events that we do as a city in the future, we will have access to then use that part of the facility.
So they won't be doing that at a concert, or they will?
They could, unless we wanted to do that on our own as some kind of a city fundraiser function or whatever, then we would have the city then would run the concession stand.
I would think that's when they'd want to be there, to be honest with you.
Well, I think one of the things that we can do, and I'm sure Tom will be happy to look into this, if the idea is that they want a multi-year contract because of the upfront investment that they're going to have, we can look into it and see exactly what the investment would be on equipment if we purchased it, and if we purchased it, if they would be willing to do a shorter contract. That's an option that we could put back out there to them, look at any costs associated with it, and that way we wouldn't be tied into a multi-year deal. We might be tied into a season or a year.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea to me. Anyway, Mr. Rust.
It might seem like a small issue, but if they have ice cream there or something, it could be, who pays the electricity and the utilities for the concessions?
Electrical and utilities would be the city.
Our responsibility.
Yes, sir.
But the other reason I was thinking about us buying the equipment, because if we bought the equipment, maybe we could be responsible for an energy-efficient system, as opposed they might bring something that's a clunker that eats up a lot of electricity, and we get a bill for perhaps more than our 5% fee. We're going negative here. That's just a thought, and I don't know what you want to do about that. But I had a couple other things. First of all, the E-Verify program is a program that verifies that these aren't sex offenders or whatever, correct? I mean, we're trying to keep straight on that one.
That's what that's for. That's for illegal aliens, so that they just employ those people that are citizens.
But it's not having to do with child molesters or things.
They will have to have background checks run on all their employees, and that's part of what they said in the proposal.
So that'll be done?
Yes.
Okay. And lastly, I think this is just another minor issue, but it seems to me like 5% of gross monthly receipts paid monthly. During the wintertime, it's like nothing happening. If they had a small event, they owe us $5. Maybe we should say accumulate to at least $100 or something, because you don't want to cut stupid checks for them to cut and for us to process. So there might be a cutoff of accumulation to a certain number before a check is cut.
That's a good idea.
This makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah, because like you said, during pretty much from mid-November to
there's going to be a period where it's going to be pretty dry. So asking someone to pay every month when it's a teeny amount is stupid. So
has there been any projection of what that income would be?
No, there hasn't. I mean, there can be some estimates, but there's not been any talks between me and Want to Play Baseball about any kind of projections.
I would have thought they would probably want to know, if they were going to, what would happen if they invested those money in the equipment. We decided we didn't want to have any big events there for a year. What would they do? I mean, it looks to me like they've got to think in terms of some kind of events there. I don't know, but.
Just based upon the athletic activities that are currently going on out there, that's what we're looking at, because there's no past history. So based upon the numbers of families that are out there on a weeknight basis as well as a weekend basis, that's kind of what they're looking at. So you're looking at probably around 500 to 700 on a weeknight and on a weekend. So that's how they're kind of basing what they're looking at.
Yeah. Where else do they manage the concessions at?
Originally, they used to do restaurants up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and then since they moved down here, they most recently started in Milton, Georgia, and so they run their brand new $10.5 million athletic facility there, do all their concessions for them.
And so obviously they hadn't been there very long, but they've been there, I guess, for some point.
And Brenda, who's the wife, she's the one that runs this side of their organization, and she's got extensive experience in running concessions for different municipalities.
Okay. Anyone else have a question? Thank you. If not. All right. Discussion of a proposed change order with Engineering Strategies, Inc. for construction management and resident inspection services for the wastewater treatment plant in the amount of $125,000. Seems like every time you show up, you want money.
Yeah, unfortunately, that seems to be the case. It's not that I don't like you guys, but it's the wastewater plant had a kind of a rocky beginning, and their ESI's original contract was based on a 21-month construction period, and I think their notice to proceed was like in early May of 2014. Through the redesign process and everything else, construction really didn't get started probably until October. But during that time of redesign, contractor was trying to do some of the work. I mean, we had a plan in place, but it wasn't approved by EPD. So the contractor was actually working. They were doing some work out there, doing some inspections, keeping an eye on the contractor, as well as negotiating the final price with them and everything. Basically, with the delays in start and some of the other things, the project is scheduled to be completed, I think, the end of June of this year. So basically, there's a time lapse, and that's pretty much what the additional cost is. I think on the third page, you can kind of see what we've done to date and what the projections, I don't know, it was in this memo that was attached, but
correct me on this, because when I read that, I may not have understood it exactly there, but it appears to me ESI was charged with doing the redesign.
correct.
So because the job that they were doing took longer than expected, they want more money on the construction management side.
Well, the construction management, their contract was based on a 21-month construction period. And that was specific to the contract, as well as it was to heavy. Now, through the evolution of the redesign plant, the time extended out by several months.
Well, wasn't the time extended out partially because of their time required for doing the redesign? And if it is, that seems a little awkward there.
Ultimately, everything was kind of tied together, but their initial contract didn't, had a specific start date and end date. But the design,
gosh, how do you ever do a start date and end date like that when you don't know what's, you never know when something's going to end like that?
Well, it was based on a construction time period, when the original plant was bid. During the redesign, I mean, they were still working, they were kind of working in parallel, doing the design as well as doing some of the initial construction phases. But when the contractor got the new design, they came back and said, okay, we'll do it for the same price, but we need X number of more months to complete it.
So if, for instance, this thing doesn't end and the construction's not complete by the end of whatever deadline is in this, they'll come back for more, right?
Maybe yes, maybe no. We could end up getting a credit back if they finish early. I mean, this is a projection.
Oh, I bet it's low. What you bet?
My gut feeling is I think it's probably pretty close to accurate, based on the level of effort that I've seen out there.
Okay.
And what we think.
Anyone have a question, comment about that? Mr. Rust?
David, what effect has the weather had on this? We've had an unusually wet year.
It's actually had a lot of effect. The last contractor schedule, I think they were looking at, and this was before the rains over the last couple of weeks, they were about 14 or 16 days behind, or had behind schedule.
Primarily because of rain.
Because of rain. And this time of year, it's a little more difficult because you don't have the warmer weather to dry things out. It takes a lot, you may have one day of rain, but it takes, 3 days to dry out. We're in a position where it's not affecting us too much because most of the site work is done. So we're not so much on the earth side. We're more into the concrete and putting in equipment and that kind of thing now. So but they're working to try to make up on some of that. They're working longer hours during the week. They'll work an occasional Saturday. So they're trying to make up those rain delays.
Thank you.
Mr. Grant.
Yes, I have some issues with this, and I don't know it's a very complicated project, and I don't pretend to understand any of the what goes engineering and all that goes behind it. My basic issue with it is that we have ESI who, for construction management, who looked at the plans and recommended that it need to be redesigned. They basically hired themselves to redesign it and said it would be up to $200,000 for redesign fees. Of course, our fees were right at $200,000. If you look at the dates, May 2014 redesign decision was made to go with ESI, and then on September 17th, 2014, the new design was approved. But then April 2015, before the revised plant design was not finalized, and the costs, and this is all being done by ESI, but the contractor began construction on October 2014.
Yeah, what had happened at that time, they came back and they agreed we accepted the EPD approved the plans. The contractor agreed to the plans. Between the time of approval and I think whatever that April date was, there was all these negotiations back and forth on the price, and what they should be and how they were going to bid it. And believe me, it was very tedious and everything else. But basically, they came back and said, okay, we'll do this new design at the same price we gave you for the first one. And that's what was going on. So they weren't objecting to the scope or anything like that. They said, okay, that's fine. We'll do it and we'll move forward with it. But it was just the price negotiation during that period.
Yeah, my issue is that ESI saying we need to redesign, hiring themselves to redesign, and now coming back because of the redesign, saying now on the construction management side they need $125,000 more. To me, it's a self-winning ping pong game.
But see, that construction management, it was a whole separate from the design, and that was based on a projection of X number of dollars over 21 months. Well, now we're up to 29 or whatever it is, and that's where essentially what the difference is.
Mm-hmm. I understand that, and I wouldn't have an issue if it was someone else doing construction management and someone else doing design, but going back and forth and coming back for more money on each side concerns me.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I will say they've done a really, really good job, and they've kept the contractor in check, and I think everyone will be really pleased with the finished product. It's going along really well now.
Yeah, thank you.
When there's no construction going on, are they doing construction management?
No.
Okay, so what?
So they're only, they're billing for the man out in the field. He's only out billing for the hours that he's actually out there.
Okay.
And then, if they're doing something in the office, if they're reviewing something, they're only billing for their time.
So it's been completely, I'm still missing something there. What extended the time? What exactly extended the time?
The contractor was given a time to start, I think it was in April or May of 2014, again, 21 months.
And he didn't start then?
He didn't really start the full-blown construction probably till the 1st of October.
So there was little or no construction management at that time?
There was stuff going on. The contractor was doing the preliminary site work, installing erosion control measures, and getting the site ready. Dealing with some of the stormwater issues and that kind of thing. So there was stuff going on out there during that redesign period.
Okay. Mr. Russ.
David, my assumption is this is not an emergency. We're going to vote on it in 2 weeks?
Yes.
The question is this. What's the consequences if we vote it down? Can we really vote it down realistically? Well, the consequences don't sound good.
I mean, the consequences is that, ESI could say, well, I have no more money. We're not going to do anything. I don't think they'll do that. I will say that even with all the changes that we've done going forward, and with the paving of the armory, we should still be below our loan amount by about $500,000. So
even including this 125?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we took out, I think the loan was like $8.4 million, and we had some contingencies and everything else. And
I think we knew almost immediately we were going to be below, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
This is one of those cases where if government's got money, it's going to spend it.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to spend it.
We got a little bit more. We're not going to spend it all.
I bet we end up real close to that.
We're going to try not
extra
to.
Money there. Okay.
Dave's going to come back for something else. I can guarantee you.
Well, we may get some of the loan. I mean, you may not have to get all the loan amount. Is what I'm thinking.
Thank you. Thanks, David.
Mr. Grant.
Dave, in your projection of possibly coming in $500,000 under, does that include the $400,000 contingency that we added on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, assuming, again, if everything goes right.
So we're coming in $100,000.
We should be about $7.9 million is what my projection is.
Okay.
So that's a good point. The 400,000, that was supposed to have been above and beyond everything, right?
I think it's
That
above
we might
the $8
need it for
million.
something else,
Correct.
and we voted because it was a
that
low
for some-
interest
That was
rate.
for some of the paving costs and some other things that we weren't sure what they were going to be. And as a matter of fact, the paving came in at just about 200,000. So.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Young.
I guess what keeps running through my mind in regard to this and similar thing, if this was caused by the redesign and the time was extended because we had to go back and redesign and everything, why wasn't this included in that estimate?
I don't think you could have anticipated. I mean, they probably knew it was going to extend, but at that time, you just don't know. This is, again, kind of a unique situation that we're in. Typically, it doesn't go like
Excuse me. Thank you guys for coming.
We're going to give you a test.
Yeah, we are going to give you a test to what you learned tonight.
I drove them off.
Sorry, Dave. Didn't mean to interrupt you. Ferris, I'm sorry. I apologize for that. Anyone else? Okay. The next item, discussion to award ESI a task order under the Demand Services Agreement to Stream Bank Restoration along the Etowah River at Bowling Park, the amount of $24,300.
This is an area that had flooded out, I don't know, several times. And we're looking to do some restabilization of the river. It's past the plant. I think it's kind of near the tennis courts. I think we looked at doing a canoe launch there last year. Couldn't work out from a siting issue. And this, ESI's got a sub that's going to do basically the majority of the work. And look to stabilize it, not spend a whole lot of money on the construction. We did talk with the Army Corps, and they would just do minimal stuff.
Was this going to be a lot more than putting riprap along the bank?
No, I think we're initially some thoughts are you might want to use some of these what they call root wads and embed them into the bank, fill in some dirt, fill in some riprap, but it's pretty much.
Does that take a lot of design?
A lot of it, some of it's permitting. Dealing with the Army Corps and everything like that.
Mr. Rust?
I know where this spot is approximately. Is it anywhere near where we're contemplating putting in a kayak launch?
No. The initial thoughts on that head structure would be more in the parking area of Bowling Park when you first come in.
So it's further downriver, or back upriver, or downriver?
Excuse me?
Is the kayak launch supposed to be up or downriver from the spot?
It would be up. It's almost more towards the bridge.
So it won't affect it at all?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? All right, next item, discussion to award Brown and Caldwell a task order under the Demand and Services Agreement to assess flooding at 120 McLean Street in the amount of $33,518.
This gentleman has been in here before speaking. I think he's talking about cleanups of some of the drainage ditches along McLean Street. But basically what's happened is there's a collection system that takes some of the stormwater off of Marietta Road down McLean Street. It collects in a junction box, and it's discharged onto his property. And there's a stretch of an open ditch, and then it's piped underground to a creek. There is a drainage easement through there. But what's happened is I believe everything is somewhat undersized, and he's getting an awful lot of flooding in his property. His driveway keeps washing away. And this is just to kind of fix the issue.
Is this a city drainage easement?
Yes.
Through his property?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mr. Grant?
Yes, the agenda item is for the Demand Services Agreement to assess the flooding? Or is it
to develop a
fix it?
plan? To develop a plan. I mean, we've met with him. They've looked at it. They're going to do some modeling and some recommendations, and then we would, once seeing what the results are, probably implement it.
And is the cost of implementation of the plan included?
I couldn't even begin to tell you. I don't know what they're going to propose. My gut feeling would be they're probably going to redo the culvert crossing underneath McLean Street, probably upsize the line, and bury the whole thing rather than have open ditches in his property. But that's just a gut feeling.
Okay, so we could anticipate implementation costs above and beyond.
I have no idea.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I probably shouldn't say this, but this issue apparently came up fairly recently, and so it apparently hasn't, to my knowledge, been an issue through history up until probably the last year anyway.
Well, my understanding, and it may have gone through several different people, it's been ongoing for a while. It's come to my attention recently, and I've met with him out there, and he's trying to keep his area, his street up with some good upkeep, and wants those drainage ditches cleaned out and everything like that. So he's looking to improve his property as well.
Do you think that is this a piped area, all of it, or is the drainage easement open?
It's a combination. It's all the storm drainage that comes off Marietta Highway is piped.
When it goes through his property, what is it?
Yeah, it comes down to a couple of drainage, some pipes down Marietta Road, down McLean Street into a box. There's some drainage swales along McLean Street that feed this box from the other side as well. And the other issue is that in some of these heavier rains, those swales surcharge and flow over the road into his property as well. So that inlet into the box may be undersized, causing some more surcharging and everything like that. But
so you're saying it's piped completely through his property?
It's piped across the road and discharges through into an open ditch in his property.
Open ditch on his property.
On his property, and then it goes down maybe 50 or 75 feet to a closed pipe that kind of cuts across his yard and into another creek.
So is it likely he just wants to some degree the open ditch piped across his property?
I think he wants. I'm not sure what the recommendation would be. I think he wants the thing closed off, realistically. But I think it's undersized. I think there's some more issues upstream causing some of that flooding. But he's sent me pictures. He sent me videos. It's
I can tell you, there's a lot of pictures you could have made in the last few weeks there that would have really looked bad
these
anyway.
Are a couple of, they're several years old in some of them. So it's been going on a while. But
I was wondering, is this Mr. Sagis's property?
Yes.
Okay, he's been speaking to me about this for some time. So
Yeah, but
I'm
he's
aware
only
of it.
been there for some time as well. You know what I'm saying is,
Right.
For some reason it wasn't brought to the council throughout the past history that I'm aware of.
No, I think it's one of those things that has kind of gone between different people.
I think he's probably the first one that spoke
And I
up
think he
about
bought it. I don't know if his father or something. He was recently purchased it.
Yeah,
But
that's it. Mr. Grant?
I know it dates back at least over 2 years because he had brought it to former Senator Scott Wood's attention back at that time. So it goes back.
It goes back.
Over 2 years.
And I will say he's been very, very patient, and he's.
It's my understanding too that some of the changes along these some of the recent changes only made it worse. Is that correct? Or
I don't know
certainly
if it
didn't
made
help.
it worse. It certainly didn't help.
Yes. So it has been going on for quite a while, and he has been patient.
Yeah, I was just surprised that any of the previous property owners hadn't brought that to our attention.
Well,
I mean, I guess
it all comes into his property. So.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Let's see. Next item: discussion of resolution to accept Northside Parkway Phase 2 for city maintenance. That's from the creek to the 140.
Excuse me?
from the creek to 140, or is that the other?
This
Wait a minute.
is behind.
This is.
No, this is Northside Parkway.
Okay, that's
This is
by
from
the
that
IHOP.
kind of behind the.
That's by the IHOP, right?
Yeah, it came to that intersection and just.
It's basically the area behind, starting at the intersection where the jewelry store is.
Yeah, the
Canton
three-way
Marketplace,
stop.
until you get back out to Northside Hospital, Cherokee.
Till you get to Northside Cherokee?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. And did we do the inspections on that, or?
We'll make sure it's checked in the next 2
Okay.
weeks.
My understanding is, yes, everything is checked out.
Yeah, now that wasn't part of the DOT participation, was it? As the other, as the boulevard was. Okay. So hopefully we would have, or someone would have done the inspections on that at that.
We'll have pictures for you and a report.
Good. And your core samples, I want to see those, okay? Just kidding. Thank you. All right. Discussion of additional funding of the cemetery improvements in the amount of $5,300.
That is mine.
That'd be you, okay.
That is mine. I'm the Lone Ranger with the cemetery. I'm sorry, I actually have pictures to show you. When I appeared before council in regard to budget and was provided with an extra $3,000 for cemetery matters, I wasn't thinking big enough, believe it or not. We actually have two cemeteries, as you'll see here. The fellow who did this got confused with Sunnyside and has remained, Southside, and has remained calling it Southside. It's actually Southview. In the red outline is Southview Cemetery. In the yellow outline is what is our pauper cemetery. It's called Sunnyside. Sunnyside Church used to be there. It's also been called Freeside, I assume because it was free. When I first approached council about money to get ground penetrating radar done on this, I just sent a fellow who does ground penetrating radar aerial photo of Southview Cemetery. Since then, I'm a member of the Georgia Municipal Cemetery Association, and I've learned a lot since then. Right now, what you have before you is a proposal from Omega Mapping. They actually more or less specialize in cemetery ground penetrating radar. In the proposal, you'll see there's a few things I've been able to eliminate. I've already done a roster of everybody buried in Southview. I haven't gotten to Sunnyside. I've gotten it started but not completed. I've also started taking pictures of each headstone that will be connected to it eventually to my roster. So those things I was able to take off of the price proposal from Omega. But what Omega would do, and basically what I'm looking for are unknown graves. When we talk about history, this is historical. This is a 160-year-old cemetery. It's not as old as Riverview Cemetery, but it got started because 2-year-old May Galt died of smallpox in 1866, supposedly from a soldier who brought it back from the Civil War, during the Civil War. The city would not allow the Galt family to take May through town to be buried in Riverview, so he started a little family cemetery up on this hill. It has grown, and I understand there were other contributions to the land area. The county gave it to the city in 1910, and not much really has been done with it. It's still active. We had a burial there today, and I'm gonna, since I have you as a captive audience, this thing is just awful. I'm going to show you a few pictures of what we've got going on here. This is Southview Cemetery. Doesn't look real nice. It looks much better in the summer when there are leaves on the trees. I've had I bought new solar lights, so those decrepit lights are gone. There are also azaleas now planted in front of the columns. This is as you go down the main lane into the cemetery. We have 5 mayors buried here. We have a lot of folks, about 700 burials. My estimate is we might have close to 400 unknown graves in the cemetery, and that's what I'd like to get identified, because you also gave me money to buy markers for unknown graves. And Omega Mapping will identify that. They actually run over all the ground. Unfortunately, we have a number of lots. I think there's just no family around anymore to maintain them, and I hate to call them abandoned because there's no family around. They used to buy 20 by 20 lots because the family would grow up in Canton and stay in Canton and die in Canton, and that just doesn't happen anymore. So my ultimate goal is to identify the unknown graves, and once I do that and can prove that there's no one buried in there in 75 years and prove that I cannot find the owners, we can get the court system to give us those lots back, which we can then sell and hopefully make the cemetery productive again. So that's my ultimate goal. But Omega Mapping, and the reason the cost would be more is they would give me GPS mapping for each unknown grave. I just have nightmares of a kid coming in and pulling up all the orange flags after Omega has been there, and or any GPR company. And so they would give me GPS mapping, and we have a wonderful fire department who could always help me re-find those unknown graves based on that GPS. And I would actually get a map, and they would overlay that with a map of the cemetery. So we'd really have something to sink our teeth into. It's a big process trying to revive a cemetery. I'm also trying to do a preservation plan that would then enable me to ask for grants. But the GPR will give us a start in knowing what we have and memorializing those people that are buried here who have kind of gotten forgotten. I have probably 25 to 30 names of people that I think might be buried here. You know, and fitting those with any unknown graves that are found, that's another challenge. But I might be able to do that with some of them. This is, the cemetery goes downhill, as you can see. And I'd like to call your attention, since I have your attention, to the trees in the background. When the tornado went through a few years ago, this is the devastation it left. And on the first picture, the aerial shot, you can see all the trees laying on the ground. So that's something that I know Public Works hears from me about, and the question I got from Merrick, I believe, last week was, well, where's the money going to come from for the trees? So I'm showing you these pictures now, so I may be back asking for money to help clean up the tree situation. It's an eyesore for the city anyway, but that's just beautify the cemetery. As you can see, there's a lot of work to be done there. I am honing my masonry skills, so a lot of this I can do myself, literally. And in the spring and summer, spring and fall, and Fridays, I spend time at the cemetery trying to get things cleaned up. So I just want to give you an idea of what's going on and what we have. It's really can be a very beautiful place if we work on it. The road that goes up down through the middle of the cemetery, from my understanding, Public Works, when they did do asphalting, if they had some left over, they'd take it and put it in the cemetery. So it's a very piecemeal lane, and I don't really have a problem with that. I mean, it could be nicer, but at least it's a lane through some of the cemetery. So I am asking for $5,300 so that I can get the GPR done, a good job with mapping that will carry us on into the future. You know, this problem with unknown graves is more than 100 years in the making. And it's just something I feel like if we have a historical cemetery, we need to be paying a little bit more attention to it. And my goal is to get it to a point that, okay, we've done what we can, and now we can move forward. But we've got to get it to that point. These are old pictures. Tree City did give me 5 trees that have since been planted. We have a couple bushes there now because I've been out there in this, I mean not bushes, benches, couple new garbage cans that will go in when Public Works is up to speed again. And I also have the message board that I said I would buy with the budget money, and that's ready to be posted up at the front, and I'll put my roster of burials in there and so forth. So this is kind of what I'm dealing with and what I'm trying very hard to improve. You can see from the artificial flowers that people do visit our cemetery. It is not abandoned. There are people that come all the time, and it's odd how often I stop by or I'm driving by and there's a car in there. I'll always pull in and talk to them and make sure I already have their contact information and so forth. But we really do have people that come visit their family and friends that are buried in our cemetery, and I think at the very least we owe it to them to try to make it a hospitable place and a peaceful, nice place to come to visit their relatives. The cemetery has suffered. $3,000 at some point was taken out of the cemetery fund for a golf course. All the trees that you saw laying between the cemetery and Hickory Flat Road used to be part of the cemetery property. They took dirt from the side of the hill so they could build Hickory Flat Road. Myrtle Belcher, I find her headstone down the side of the hill surrounded by trees. I'm not sure if she was buried down there or fell down there. That's something I have to determine. But the cemetery has really been neglected and abused and so forth, and I'm going to fight for it, so you'll hear from me. So at the very least, I am asking for $5,300 at this point, more. I know it's more. It's nothing, though, compared to Dave Batavian's request. So I can get GPR done. We can then get the unknown headstones put in, and continue to beautify and document our cemetery the way a historical site should be taken care of. And that's it.
Mr. Rust?
I noticed in all the pictures, Susan, that some of these 20 by 20 plots have like one headstone in it. Are you looking to try to reclaim the balance of that 20 by 20 if it has in fact been abandoned by the family, but for that one or two headstone?
Yes. And that's if I can prove nobody's been buried there for 75 years and I can't find the owner. Every spare minute I have, I'm working on the cemetery looking for owners, looking up obituaries. You wouldn't believe the extent I go through to try to find the owners of the graves. But yes, and in fact, I have one 20 by 20 lot that the owner has agreed to give back to the city. So I have the deed for that, and I'll run it by Bobby and get that 20 by 20 lot back in the city's hands. But yes, I kind of, like we have one lot, 20 by 20, sold to Bob Smith in 1915. Finding Bob Smith 100 years later is almost an impossible task as far as I know. So that lot, and I don't think anybody's buried there. I don't see anything that would indicate anybody's buried there. But you can't always tell, which is why we'd have to have the ground penetrating radar done. So yes, I want.
You're not trying to reclaim the 400 unidentified grave sites and reuse them, right?
Not 400. No, we have about. I don't know how many there will be. It will depend on the burials. Sometimes I think they can tell how old it is. I'll get out my list of names that I have of folks that reportedly are buried there. I have a feeling some of those names belong over in the Pauper Cemetery. Oh, but also included the Pauper Cemetery would have GPR done too. We undoubtedly have a number of unknown graves there. I've talked with Norman Sosby's wife, and they would wake up, they lived across the street from the Pauper Cemetery down the street a bit, and she said they would wake up in the morning and there would be a freshly dug grave across the street, covered up and closed. With no headstone or anything. So I know we have a number in the Pauper Cemetery.
Would the Historical Preservation Society ever get involved, or the Historical Preservation Group that we discussed earlier, would they ever be involved with you?
I don't know. I think their area is going to be restricted to downtown.
Okay, thank you.
I am, it would be nice. A lot of cities have Friends of the Cemetery, much like Friends of the Library, but it's Friends of the Cemetery. And I am gathering a little group of people who will say, let me know what I can do and I'll help you. So, that's a start of a committee for that. So I hope to get something going and perpetuate some kind of funding so that the cemetery can be cared for.
Thank you.
I don't think any of them voted in the last election, right? Any of the residents?
None of the people in the cemetery. That's why I am here.
Mr. Young?
I just wanted to say, one of the things since I came into office, Stacy and I have been doing regularly is we'll take Sunday afternoon and just go visit areas of the city. And I was not even aware, as long as I've lived here, that this cemetery was there until we went up that street, because it's well off the beaten path. But we spent several hours wandering around in there, and it needs a lot of help. And I just want to applaud Susan for taking this project on. And it is a very important part of the city's history, and I think we need to do whatever we can to preserve and beautify it.
Thank you. Jack?
I'd like to second that thought, because I went through that cemetery several times, and there are several elected officials that are there, as well as other people that you might know if you've been around Canton as many years as I've been around. But my dad actually was born right across the street from there, so it's kind of a familiar place. But I think that this is a very worthy cause we need to pay attention to. I know when I go to Savannah, I'm going through cemeteries, so I have a historical interest in that, and I'd be glad to help you serve on that.
Okay, anyone else? All right. Moving along. Discussion and possible action on the abandonment of Archer Street extension, also known as Circle Court. Mr. Peppers.
It's known as Circle Court on a map, but it's not technically Circle Court. There is a piece of Archer Street that is an extension that goes into the property that used to be the former school board site that the city has ownership of. And we would need to vote to abandon that street. And by doing so, we need to notify, I believe there's 2 abutting property owners that we'll need to notify in the next 2 weeks, and we'll bring copies of that notification to you so that you can take action at that point.
Okay. On the 21st.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Grant?
So we wouldn't need to vote until the 21st to abandon. Is there anything that's going to slow any possible developments in that area down in the next 2 weeks?
No, I think out of abundance of precaution, notifying those 2 property owners that abut that area is what we should do.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? All this would do basically is to hopefully relieve any interest that we have, the city itself has in that right-of-way that goes sort of between the 2 parcels, the one that the mill office is on and the one that the elementary school is on. It just extends up there. Okay. Next item.
Yes, the city has, as you know, an impact fee program, and part of that is we have to do an annual report to the Department of Community Affairs and the Atlanta Regional Commission outlining our capital improvement elements, and then also our 5-year short-term work plan addendum. We have done that. We have received comments back from them. We've received their sign-off, basically. And so at this point, all we have to do is approve the resolution as it relates to those. And if you have any questions on that, Mr. Patton's here. He can answer those.
Any questions, comments? Okay, next item, discussion of annexation request by Lane Wood for property located at 511 Oakdale Road.
I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Patton.
Thank you, Mr. Peppers. Mayor, council members, Ms. Lane Wood did submit a request to annex property at 511 Oakdale. It is further described as Cherokee County Tax Map 14N 18B Parcel 40. It is adjacent to existing City of Canton property on 2 sides. The county was notified in regards to this annexation, as well as the next item of the zoning. Our office received no comment, no word, no opposition from Cherokee County in regards to this proposed annexation. I'm available to answer any questions either of the council members might have.
Okay. Any questions, comments?
I have
Mr. Allen?
one question. I thought I remembered Councilman Rust brought something up before I joined council where the council approved an annexation for her. Am I remembering that wrong?
No, council approved the annexation process.
Okay.
Ms. Lane had to formally make the application. Our office worked with Ms. Wood in regards to preparing that annexation application as well as the zoning to move the process along. City Council did waive the fees associated with the annexation and zoning. And that
Okay,
was
so
done
this is
about
just a
year ago.
continuation of that
Yes.
process?
Yes.
Okay, I was just wanting to clear that up, and I was like, wait a minute, didn't we do this?
Principally, we agreed in order to straighten up some of the city limits a little bit there along Oakdale Road that we would waive the fee to get that accomplished.
Okay.
And she was willing to do that. Anyone else? All right. Also, the zoning, you want to talk about that? And of course, that has to come along after the annexation.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. The property that Ms. Lane Wood is requesting to be annexed is currently zoned R40 residential, 40,000 square foot lot size in Cherokee County. We are requesting, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of R20, which is residential 20,000 square foot lot size to be consistent with the existing city zoning that is in place and adjacent on the two sides. Again, we received no opposition or comments from any of the property owners within the area that were notified part of the zoning application public hearing process. We received no opposition or comments from Cherokee County.
Okay. Any comments, questions on that? Okay. Thank you. Discussion of the changes to the alcohol servers permit ordinance.
I'm going to handle that one.
Mr. Dyer?
This is it started off as a proposal to change the requirements or qualifications for a server's permit. What we have now is very unclear. So we intended to change it to make it clear that it's a conviction that disqualifies you. The version you have in your packet still says the word violation. The word violation will change to conviction.
Okay.
To make it clear, the police department fields way too many requests, and because I've been arrested, but I did this and I did that. We're going to make it very clear it's convictions and nothing else. The rest of it then, as long as we were doing that, are some changes to the training programs to match what they're actually doing. What they were doing did not match our ordinance. So we have, the rest of the ordinance changes are to make them match.
Okay. Mr. Grant?
On the training, it's my understanding, I've heard from different restaurant owners that, is there monthly training or quarterly or?
Well, it's now offered monthly. That's one of the things we're changing.
We're
The ordinance said quarterly. Well, they already are offering it monthly, and the ordinance didn't say that. That's one of the things we cleaned up.
Okay.
It is offered monthly, though.
It's offered, but it's required by servers
every
annually,
server.
or
no, they get it one time.
One time.
They have to do it within 90 days after starting their job.
Okay. I was under the understanding that some of the restaurant owners think that they have to come back every year for the training.
They have to get their permit every year, but they don't have to train again, do they?
Okay.
So they have to get annual training?
I think that was some of the
Is that a complaint you're hearing?
complaint that I've had my license for 5 years. I have to come back every year, my staff. But some of the complaints, but I also think there's confusion out there that hopefully this will clear up. So. It is my understanding that they currently have to come back every year. So.
And that's your decision, not the chief's or mine. I mean, if you want to say they only have to get it one time, that's up to you.
Well, maybe, you know, it might make sense to have that once every so many years, unless there's some new kind of regulations that come out that they need to be made aware of. Would that be a possibility? There's no sense in them having the same training every year.
That was my understanding, that it was the same class year after year, and restaurant owners who had restaurants in other cities, also had them in Canton, said it was very different here, that they had to repeatedly do that. But okay. All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. City manager report.
I have 3 items to discuss with you tonight. Bring information on the first. I have a handout that each one of you should have received tonight. This is a memo and a draft technical report on our infiltration and inflow study, the I&I study. We have information back from our consultants. Basically, what we're looking at is where we have issues with our sanitary sewer. And how we might correct those issues. I will tell you, as an example, on Christmas Eve, when we had quite a bit of rain in the city, we are usually treating somewhere between 3.5 and 4 million gallons in our wastewater plant. I think we treated about 8 million gallons because we had quite a bit of runoff that was running through this. This study actually looked at about 30,000 linear feet of lines with smoke testing, and so there's pictures in here. You can look at it. This is not the entire city, though. This is just one section that was, 2 sections of our lines that were reviewed. Initially, in sitting down with Brown and Caldwell, we think the fixes on this section are not going to be that expensive. Probably about $50,000 or so worth of fixes. So we ought to be able to get that section done. A lot of it was just maybe some caps that were missing in certain locations that have been removed. Maybe some improvements to some manholes that exist. So this may be a very inexpensive piece to actually fix. Now, when we start getting into other areas of town, such as downtown, and some of our areas that tend to flood a little bit more, we may see more expensive solutions. But I wanted to bring this to you so that you could look at it and know where we're at in the process specific to this contract. And if you have any questions over the next couple of weeks, we'll be happy to get with Brown and Caldwell and try to get you those answers as well. Yes, sir.
When you find, I'm assuming you was talking about maybe manhole covers and stuff like that missing and so forth, or
not actually the cover missing, but maybe where they concreted up on the sides. Maybe it's a raised sewer cap where we've got some cracking in concrete, or areas where maybe we've had tree root do penetration, and because of that, we're getting additional rainwater that's getting into those lines, and most people wouldn't see that as an issue, but there is a cost to us to treat all of that water. So if we can keep the groundwater, the rainwater, flowing into the river, we're not necessarily treating all of that, and we're saving our citizens money at our water treatment facility.
This 30,000 linear feet, is this what's shown on Figure 3.2? And I'm wondering, where exactly is that on the ground?
I know from the pictures a number of these areas were on the North Canton side. We looked.
I think the initial areas were in Cherokee Overlook. What's the subdivision next? Was it Mountain View? Oh, then it's Hillcrest? Those two, and then along the river, up from the Caldwell Lift Station, basically where the skate park is, all up the river, behind Heritage Park, up 140 up that way. We kind of looked at the Caldwell Lift Station service area and the Harmon Fields service area, because those pumps will run constantly during these rain events. So we figured, let's start here, work our way out. We did find the system was actually in pretty good shape. What we pretty much figured is that there's an awful lot of flow from outside this initial area that's feeding into it, that's showing all this flow coming in here.
Okay,
But all in all,
this is 6 miles out of a total of what do we have?
Off the top of my head, I want to say 140 maybe.
Out of 140 miles?
But what we're not going to we're not really going to look at any of the newer developments, and we figure that stuff's pretty tight. It would be concentrated.
So how much now? Okay, so and that would be a substantial amount, no doubt, the newer ones. So we got 6 miles out of roughly. How many do you think we're going to do?
It's hard to say. Off the top of my head, I don't know. But the big white elephant is downtown. That one's going to be interesting when that smoke comes through.
And in discussions with Brown and Caldwell, what we talked about was, $50,000 is their kind of ballpark of what it might cost to make the improvements in this section of it. There could be some more coordinating costs, but the actual construction cost on some of this may be smaller. So we may be able to fix this area and get it working. Downtown's going to be harder because you've got older systems to look through and all of that.
Doesn't it make sense to attack the oldest, most likely problem areas first instead of subdivisions like you just named there that have some age but are certainly not extremely old?
Well, I think the bigger concern is that those two particular stations, Harmon Field and Caldwell, are constantly running. And we know that they're getting a heavy amount of usage during these heavy rain events. So if we could pinpoint what exactly is causing those areas to get more, the thought was that might be the big penetrator into the system. What we found is that probably not so much those areas. They're getting a lot of work, but it may be other areas contributing into that outside of those zones that they looked at.
Anyone else? Okay.
So that was the first one. The second one I want to update you on is Wooded Mountain Trail. This is one that I've heard a lot about. As you know, Wooded Mountain Trail is up in the Great Sky community. The road, as it exists, is a little bit different than other streets in the city, so to speak. I had numerous pictures that came to me on Christmas Eve with flooding in that area. We had originally tasked Atkins with looking at some improvements in a short section of that street. And my direction to staff has been, we need to fix the entire street. We could look at putting curbing in front of 3 or 4 properties, which is what the initial designs called for. But I think we would be better off to put curbing in front of all of the residential homes on that side of the street, work on the interior as it relates to ditching, and then look at our stormwater facilities in there as well. And also, while we're doing that, pave it. While we're doing a lot of work on the street, we ought to just go ahead and pave it at that time. Having looked at that, Atkins has said that basically the cost to design, they were given a $35,000 contract to do the initial design. And that basically got us 4 homes and 1 of the stormwater facilities that's out there. They have proposed that for an additional $48,000, they can design the entire street as it relates to curbing, and there's another stormwater facility that's a little bit further on the street. They anticipate that the total construction, including the total construction and paving, is probably going to be in the $400,000 range for that street. to get the curbing in, the concrete work, and the asphalt work. What they anticipate is that if we do the entire street, that the design could be complete right around the 1st of March, and that we could go out to bid and we could have the entire street completed, including the paving, by September of this year. And I wanted to bring that before you as an informational update, and we will bring back to you at the next meeting that in the form of a contract, a change order on the scope of this project.
So what you're saying, the design of that would be about $80-something thousand, just the design?
Yes, sir.
And what's the distance, what's the length of that street? 1,500. Oh, okay.
One of the reasons, or two of the reasons for the added design cost, or the seemingly larger design costs, are there's an awful lot of field survey that would need to be done to locate everything. The other thing is the fact that this whole project is now over an acre, and now you're running into erosion and monitoring and all that. So about half of that cost is surveying and NPDES monitoring. It's not so much that it's a really difficult design. It's more the survey and the monitoring associated with it.
And I would just mention too, the other thing to remember is you have a lot of driveways that are feeding onto that road, and as we're working on curbing, we're going to have to work on those as well. So a good amount of time and energy from the design standpoint is going to be dealing with those access points as well as part of the design to make sure that that's done correctly. My thought process is, we have this problem street. If we're going to fix it, let's fix it correctly the first time. Let's not piecemeal it. Let's get it done. Yes, sir.
Billy, you didn't look like you were looking at me. At any rate, I thought sometime back when we first agreed to go forward with this, we were going to forego some of these design expenses and just do it, fix it, maybe internally with the city. Now, I'm not sure that was the right idea, but it seems to me we've retraced and we're back to design, which is probably a better approach if you got a bigger project, but I thought we were going to just go ahead and fix it. Can't do that. Or
what we originally talked about, if I recall, we had an option of looking at a study or go straight to the design.
Oh,
and we were
okay.
just talking about this one stretch.
So there was a study, design, then fix.
Yeah,
There's
and
three
we
stages.
eliminated the study.
We have skipped the first stage.
We just said, let's do this stretch here. Let's fix this problem and move forward. So we eliminated that study, but yeah, that's
We did save money there.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Next.
The last item I wanted to bring to your attention is a matter that's just come up, and this is related to a federal program, the Department of Justice's equitable sharing payments, basically where they pull in all of their asset forfeiture funds. And there were some considerable cuts on the federal side to Department of Justice, and so basically what they have said is we're not going to distribute those funds. We're going to keep those funds to operate the Department of Justice. And I wanted to bring that to your attention. It may not have a direct impact on us as a city now, but some of the federal programs that we do participate in, CMANS, for instance, part of the drug task force, if this is the process that they are going to continue to utilize, those programs may become more expensive for the city as we're having to contribute more to the cost of the operation of those programs. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. I'll forward the email to you. We got it today. But, I did think that should be brought to you. So, yes, sir.
Billy, it seems like a while back Chief Mitchell came to us with $20,000 that came by way of that route. That didn't get taken back, did it? We used that money. Spend it quick before they take it back, right? But in the future, we're not going to get that.
Well, it's up in the air. If you talk to certain people, they say, oh, it could be back in by the end of the year. Department of Justice says they don't know when it will be back in. And so we just need to be cognizant of that, as we go through the budgeting process for this next year, if we are asking for more funds on those programs, that's probably a significant reason why.
When we have a claim like this, and we just, they go out and they recover something, how do you determine whether the feds are the ones that get it, or we, the city of Canton, gets it and bypass that whole thing? Is there a delineating point that makes that decision? Because it seems to me it'd be more inclined to keep it in the city if they're never going to give you part of it back.
We don't do it at all. I mean, it's the prosecutors that do it, like the district attorney or the federal
he
government.
determines where it goes.
Correct.
I gotcha. Okay. Will this have a substantial effect on your department? What did you use that money for? I can't remember what it was. Oh, okay, now I remember. Because I was teasing you about gold toilet seats, but no, I mean, you did it for interior stuff. But yeah, okay, thank you.
You do now? Oh, well, you might as well hear it now, right? Come on.
I just quickly got on the phone with our manager. Correct, it was an annual after renewal. And I asked her, hey, what's the justification for us doing this annual for the renewal? And she said it was based off how the ordinance was originally written, and that's how we've been doing it. So we'll immediately change that starting tomorrow. And what we'll do is when you come in, if you're coming in to renew yours, what we'll make sure is they get a copy of the ordinance, and we can even note any changes at that time. Obviously, new permit holders would have to go through the class. So
we'll need to change the ordinance.
And we'll change the ordinance to say that they only have to do the training initially. Chief and I were talking briefly. I mean, there's probably not even a reason to make them come back in 3 years or 5 years.
Yeah.
Because the training is just about, what the law covers, and then after that, you just give them the ordinance.
Absolutely. And we'll make sure they get a copy every time they renew.
Okay. Thanks, Chief. Appreciate that very much. Okay. Under the mayor's report, I did have on here a nomination of Jeffrey Adams to the Stormwater Advisory Committee, but that's going to be incorporated with the other information that I'm going to mention to you because I do intend to nominate him. And discussion of the appointments. We need to make sure, Susan, that everybody gets a copy of this package of these. Okay. Oh, okay. They've got to. Okay. Well, let me just hurriedly mention here what the intention are. Under the Canton Building Authority, I don't know if you have that or not, but there are three slots that are up for reappointment or replacement, and it's my intention to nominate them for reappointment, and that is Andy Bonner, Bob Riley, and Harold Swindell. Under the Canton Development Authority, there are no slots open at this time. The next one will be at the end of 16. Under the Canton Housing Authority, there are none at this time. Under Canton Main Street Board, there are none. There may be, I don't know if apparently there are no vacancies on it, or at least no terms are ending at this point. Canton Preservation, Inc., it's my intention, Jack Whitmire had resigned. On that is Nell Magruder and Stephanie Joyner, and I intend to nominate them for their reappointment, and also Skip Spears to be nominated to serve on that, and he has agreed to do so. Under Canton Tourism, Inc., that's on an annual basis. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 members there now, and it's my intention to nominate them, all of them, for reappointment. That's Pat Gold, Bill Magruder, Joyce Swindell, George Murphy, Francis Vaughn, and Lane Wood. Under the Canton Tree Commission, there are 2 slots there that are up for reappointment, and that of Don Stafford and Ann Fincher. It would be my intention to recommend the reappointment of those 2. All the other members have 16 or 17 or even 18 expiration dates. Commission on Canton's Future, of course, that is appointed by the mayor with 3 each, and each council member with 3 each. And so, Ms. Wilson, you could either continue with what's there on that Hookie had, the appointments that he had made, or you can change those to someone you wish to put in that slot. It is, yes, ma'am. Well, is that when they're going to do it? I don't know. If they are, it doesn't make sense to put somebody else in there for sure. Yeah, but it's not going to come then, though, is it?
I think that's going to be their last meeting. I have their agendas. I got notice today they're going to add one more meeting on the 11th.
Okay.
But I think their intention is to wrap it up.
It's still close, so you may not want to do anything at this point. Yeah. Although after this report comes in, it's my belief and my thought that this commission should still stay intact and maybe not continue to meet on a regular basis, but stay intact so that they could come back and revisit this from time to time over the next few years, hopefully. So you might want to, get somebody at that point. Okay. Under the Downtown Development Authority, there are no vacancies on that. That's composed of Zach Kell, Rebecca Johnston, Stan Rogers, Doug Key, Wanda Rhodes, Cleveland Chambers, and Lewis Klein. Historic Preservation Commission, we had on there Jack Fincher. We do need someone to replace Jack in that slot. So if anybody has a recommendation on that, then we'd certainly welcome that. Glenn Bliss is currently on there, but it's questionable whether he's going to stay. Susan Bice was on. She resigned. We appointed Jane Shelnut to fill that slot. Harry Johnson is on it. Sharon Hunt had just sent her resignation due to health reasons. So Jeff Brown is on, Stacy Young, and Bob Rugg. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, a minimum of 4 and maybe 5 members on that currently, with basically 2 vacancies. So if someone that has a strong interest in historic preservation, I think it would be, please just send me their names if you will, but please confirm that they're willing to serve on that and take the training and all that stuff. Yes, ma'am. It's a Historic Preservation Commission. Impact Fee Advisory Committee, it's my intention to recommend the reappointment of all those members. They all appointed on an annual basis. Dwight Pullen, Glenn Bliss, James Bagwell, and Doug Williams. The International Property Management Code Board of Appeals, we have on that, there are none up. Though that membership is Glenn Bliss, Linda Breeden, Jeremy Sexton, and the alternatives are Bill Kent and Barbara Manus. The Library Board, Deborah Fincher is the appointee, a 3-year term ending June of 17. The Planning Commission, there are no terms up at this time. These are 3-year terms. The next terms will end in December of 16. Those members are Carol Day, Dwight Pullen, Andy Bonner, Richard Kemp, Pat Gold, Leon Gramling, and Bill Magruder. Stormwater Advisory Board. It would be my intention to reappoint all the members and to include Jeff Adams to replace Jack Fincher, and he has agreed to do so. That Stormwater Advisory Board is made up of Jane Shelnut, now Jeff Adams, hopefully, Barbara Holloway, Steve Paget, James L. Spears, Ben Key, and Bill Kent. The Urban Redevelopment Agency is composed of Tom Sanders, Karen Owen, Ferris Young, Kathy Chapman. It's my intention to reappoint all of those, to renominate all of those. There is one slot that someone it's not essential because of the infrequency in which this body meets and so forth, but if there's someone that would like their name on this committee, then we could certainly welcome them aboard. The Zoning Board of Appeals, There are no vacancies there. We replaced Jack Fincher with Ann Fincher back a few months ago. So the rest of them we will continue, and that's the only one anyway. So, Mr. Russ?
Not that I object, but can Ferris actually serve on that urban redevelopment agency?
Does he serve?
Can he
Yes.
serve on
In fact, Susan, elected official can serve on that urban redevelopment agency.
Yes, I have a list of committees that the council cannot serve on,
And that's not one of them.
but he can be on that.
Yeah, okay, no problem, thank you.
In fact, he was just made the chair not long ago.
Okay, no, I don't have any problem, I just thought it was an oversight or something.
Yeah.
I didn't know till they told me.
No, thank you, thank you.
Yes,
Mayor,
ma'am.
I've reviewed the people on the Committee for Canton's Future that Mr. Huffman, I have no objection to those same people serving.
Okay, well, they will continue. Thank you.
I just have one thought. I thought that Bill, let me see, one of his appointments I thought was off, but I don't know. Bill Henry, is he on still? I don't know.
You know,
I think so.
What,
He was
didn't-
here tonight.
Oh, okay.
He was present tonight.
Oh, okay, fine.
I'm not sure. You know, he did come off of something. and I'm
Yeah,
not
he
sure whether
did.
it
We
was
came
this
off
or
the,
not. Yeah, I
2050.
think he still is on this one, isn't he?
Yeah, I think
Future Commission.
he told me the reason he got off that 2050 vision for 20, but it doesn't really matter if they're going to wrap up and close out anyway.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
not an issue. Thank you.
Okay, so that's what the intentions are for the next meeting on the committees at this point. And if you have any nominations you'd like to submit on some of those where there are a vacancy, and there's not that many this time, which to me speaks well of the committee process, because in years past we've had tons of them to change and not be there. So comparatively speaking, there's been very, very few this time, so people are staying on and becoming more and more involved in what's going on. All right. I will entertain a motion at this point to go into executive session for the discussion of personnel and real estate.
So moved.
A motion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Okay, we are adjourned.
Are we coming back to
will
vote?
not. We
We're
will
not?
not be coming back out for any vote.
How long, gee, how long is this going to take?
She's got to be getting bored.
Oh, my God. I'm shocked that she
Kelly
is.
left, you know.
Yeah, I know. I'm shocked that she's still here. But